go ahead.
Is Brian getting ready to go fishing for
Brian is
Memorial?
leaving, Brian is leaving to go fishing as soon as we get done with this.
You forgot my invite again.
We'll get there. This is my first trip this year, so I'm a month and a half behind. So
Woo!
I gotta go
How
make
much you
sure it's
been
gonna
busy?
run before I start taking people out.
He owes a lot of us a fishing trip. He said I can go sometime too.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta figure out how I can go first.
Gotta make sure the boat works. Hey, Brian, I'd love to go fishing with you, but you don't have to take me fishing.
You wanna go, but I don't have to take you?
I'm always game for a good time, but I don't need to go. You got a list of people waiting.
I'm taking
Uh,
Sharon and Nate Shaw this trip.
You
Okay,
ready?
let's go ahead and get going.
Yeah,
I'm sure there'll
okay,
be more people logging on as we go, and I'll keep an eye out for them, but go ahead.
okay. No, we're
And
just
this is
gonna.
being recorded so that we can pass this on so that everybody else can take advantage of this as well. So feel free to let it rip.
Okay, great. So we're gonna talk about expired and canceled listings and how to take advantage of that as a lead generating source. I feel like this is kind of an untapped, not highly utilized, and maybe that's just my limiting belief, but some people can feel a little bit intimidated by reaching out to expired and canceled, and I really appreciate you guys being here to be able to help guide us through like your process, what your experience is, maybe some top tips of what we can offer others on how to get started with that. So, okay, so maybe we'll start with Nani. Some insight on how long you've been doing it and.
Just an overall introduction is what
Overall,
we're looking
okay,
at.
I was like, wow,
Great. Yeah, so, Nani Palmer, I've been licensed since 2000, so for a little bit, I think we're in my 25th year or season of real estate.
Quarter of a century.
I know.
She's really old.
Ronnie, when in 2000?
When in 2000, July, so
Ooh, I got
July.
you beat. I'm a January 27, 2000 guy. So
Yeah.
barely nudged you out on that one.
You were when?
January 27th, 2000.
2000, there we go. Well, we are band of brothers in that. So yeah, so I've been doing this for a little while, and I've always worked on a real estate team. I've never been a solo agent. I have several reasons for that. Not good, not bad, just is, and it's the way I like to operate. And I don't know what else you want to know outside of that. Maybe, yeah.
I guess, do you mainly focus on listings?
I've done it all. So just to kind of like rewind, when I first got into business, I was probably like one of the original transaction coordinators in the industry. I worked alongside with my dad, did TC work for quite some time. And not to like, jump ahead until at what point Lance jumped on, and I would quickly handed that job off to Lance. And he became our TC coordinator, and I started working with just buyers, did buyers for probably, I don't know, about a decade. I mean, solely just worked buyers. Lance quickly decided that he was not in love with the TC portion of it either. So we both collaborated and hired a real TC person who loves that job. And we got a TC person, and then Lance hopped into listings. So we kind of bounced back and forth as far as that goes, as business partners. He worked listings, I worked buyers for quite some time, and then eventually moved into working listings. Did go through a period of just working listings. Now I'm in the season of working sellers and buyers, which I prefer, to be honest with you. I feel like it gives you a good perspective on, what's overall happening in the market. Again, not wrong, not right, just what, I feel like when you've been in it for 25 years, you kind of go through these different seasons just to stay interested sometimes. And anyway, so yeah, I work both buyers and sellers, primarily sellers, but I feel privileged enough to say, like, I work with buyers that I like, so that's like you then.
If someone else will happily help us.
Somebody.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Great, yeah, well, we'll work on intros
Yeah,
first and then
cool.
we'll go from
Sounds good.
there. So Lance, tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, yes, I'm Lance Davis. I have not been in real estate as long as Nani. She's my business partner. I got my license in the beginning of '06.
The
So,
best market.
so I'm in my 19th year selling real estate. I got my license after I got out of the army, and like she said, I went into more TC work. I only did that for about a year, and I realized that I liked listings, so I just started doing listings, and that was, if you recall what happened in towards the end of 2006, going into 2007, 8, 9, it was, the market was different, right? And so there were a lot of expireds and canceled listings back then, and so I really just focused on those. Because I had come back from the army and didn't really have much of a sphere up here left, because I was gone for quite a few years before getting back up here, so. I did a lot of expired and canceled and FISBOs and all that, and mainly focused on listings for the first part of my career for quite a few years. It wasn't really until about 2021, when during COVID, that I kind of started doing buyers again. So I had buyers, so I do buyers and sellers now, but I still kind of think of myself
Listing
more
heavy.
as a listing realtor versus a buyer's realtor. I gag me with a spoon for every buyer I work with, honestly, but I do it. So
That's really good. He rather.
that's my valley talk.
Oh my gosh, gag me with a spoon, oh my god.
Typically ends up handing buyers off. To
I do hand a lot of the buyers off, I hand a lot of them off, just because
You're that blessed that you can.
Because they're better served with somebody
they're
else.
better service somebody else, yes.
I'm just PC.
Yeah, oh, that's perfect, I love his candidness. All right, Amanda Charles.
Yep, Amanda Charles, been licensed since August of 2012. And started out with just, let's go, and wanted to invest, but I have what's called analysis paralysis. I will study something for years before taking action. So I thought if I understood a contract, I could get into it. 13 years, still haven't invested, but I'm really good at real estate. So, started off buyer heavy, now I'm listing heavy. My buyers tend to be if my seller is buying, I'm doing that, or it's a direct referral from a past client. I don't really get anybody who just finds my name. I don't pay for advertising for lead sources. I'm 100% referral based. Other than I will support my business with expired to cancel, but I had very good success with that.
Excellent. All right, well, wonderful. Well, can you guys tell us about your process, maybe about how you get into reaching out to them? Maybe we'll even touch on mindset and psychology well, let's start with you, Amanda, since we went that way. Like, what's your process for reaching out to canceled or expireds? Are they different? And, or maybe can you define a canceled or expired for maybe new licensees who might not understand what that is?
Yep, so if you have an expired, it means that there was a listing agent who had a contract for whatever X period of time it was set at, your exclusive right to sell, and you came to the conclusion of that contract and it did not sell. So, and then a cancel would be there was a listing agent who had a contract to list the house, and the seller chose for one reason or another, or maybe the licensee chose to cancel that contract. They did not want to continue. I choose expired and cancel because I think it's a very good soft opportunity, because they've already shown a willingness to want to work with a real estate agent. I'm not a cold caller. I did it for 2 hours out of my 13 years, and it was the worst day of my life. And so I just I'm not that confrontational type person.
Still scarred.
It was like 8 years ago when I
Long 2 hours.
It was. So that's why I choose expireds, and I don't tend to do new expireds because this is my set of glasses, this is my viewpoint, is that there's a million other hungry agents like, oh, you want to sell now, you didn't sell, but I can help you sell. I don't want to be up against 15 other people. Could I? Sure. Have I won those? Yeah. But I choose the old expireds. And so that process for me in the old cancel is really like I pull a year. And I pulled a canceled, and I'm not someone who just pulls all canceled. Like I primarily do the valley, I do go into Eagle River in the Anchorage municipality, but those tend to be very close friends and that kind of thing. I typically just, well, I don't wanna drive that far, so I'm on the highway. So I do out here, and I'll narrow it down specifically on what that market is missing at what our current market is missing. Like if we're having a shortage of like the 300 to 400,000, because that's, you know, there's not many listings in that, but we have a buyer demand, talking to lenders and that kind of stuff, or just my buyers knowing, I'll do that. My approach is different. I'm not picking up the phone and calling them. I do a 6-week mailing campaign, followed by a permanent addition to my monthly mailer that goes out. And so I'm continually adding to my database using these. They don't go away. A good success rate, if you look at the National Association of Realtors, a success rate, if you have a 2 to 3% success rate with an expired or a canceled, that's very, very good success rate. Mine tends to be between 12 and 10 and 12%. So
Wow.
much higher than the national average on that. And it's strictly, I don't go door knocking with it. I don't do anything. My first mailer, I brought examples of here and I'll share them with anybody who wants. But the title of the first one is Selling Your Home Doesn't Have to Be Frustrating, right? So because there is some point of frustration, was it with the real estate agent, the wife or the husband, the kids, the process, the failed septic, that there's some point of frustration in the whole thing. Very short, very brief, whatever. And then it just goes through, I send out a market update specifically on what's happening in theirs. There's one that says don't give up. There's a yay Amanda page. Then it goes a couple more after that. And then it's just a monthly campaign after that that goes out to be first week of the month, every single month. It says, here's your town. It's not here's the valley, what's happening. If you're in Palmer, Houston, Chickaloon, Big Lake, like you get that month's stats on what's happening in that market. And a lot of times, even if, like I said this last week, but if I'm getting a call or a text, because I say, call, text me, can you stop mailing me? Take off your mailing list. I'm like, guess what I'm doing is working because they're opening it. Even if they're telling me that they don't want it, that's at least what I'm sending out. Is it getting in front of eyes enough to open it? And so that for me is a win, because there's a bunch of other people who are getting it. They're probably opening, just not contacting me because they're not ready. And so I've had a really good success rate. I don't go door knock with it. I don't do anything else other than just a strict mail campaign. And I have a really good response rate to that. I'm not pushy. I'm statistical data-based, data-based, not database. So providing them and empowering them with information.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
Nice.
And how about you guys? Like, was it, yeah, I gotta talk, what's your process or like, what insights do you have, for someone who's starting or wanting to get into it?
You want me to talk? So, I'm gonna be honest,
You can see me, I'm way too anxious. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Take it away. I'll fill in the blank.
so I'll be honest, in the last few years, I haven't spent a whole lot of time on them. It's really how I got started, but you know, the phone call thing for me has been because most of the time, it used to be different when we had landlines. Everybody had a landline, you could usually get a hold of them. Now everyone has a cell phone, so it's difficult to be able to contact people. And so, and these dialer systems pulls the contact, but most of the time the contact is the realtor that, put their number in there as the contact. So I don't do really much calling, but what I do and have done quite a bit in the past, and what I enjoy doing is I do handwritten cards. We have a stack of cards in our office and I just do a handwritten, with the TMO, I use the TMO, I throw that in there, and it's just a really simple, short message usually, but it's in my own handwriting. I say, hey, I noticed that your house, you had your house on the market, and I'm just curious, do you still intend to sell? It's really simple. I don't do this. I think those scripts are, hey, I got buyers, blah, blah, like all the bold stuff, like, to me, I'm not really into that. I just wanna know, do they still intend to sell? I do handwritten cards. Early in my career, I used to drive around with packets in my car that were FSBO expired, canceled packets. And I did do the door knocking. Because I figured on the new ones, they were getting 15 phone calls. But I was the only one showing up on the doorstep, and I actually preferred that they were not home. I didn't want to see them in person. If I did, it was great. I'd have a face to face, but I would just hand deliver these packets. They were in big envelope. You couldn't miss them. And I would just go and drop those off at the house. And I had quite a few people call me back after that. So, you know, that was a very kind of strategic thing. I just always had them in my vehicle. That way I would never.
Inside the packets?
Yeah, it was similar, you know, there was some, you know, recent market data, but it was really just a cover letter mainly. Again, you know, introducing ourselves to who we are, that we specialize in selling homes that did not sell the first time around. And that was what we.
That's where we use the bold scripts. We would like incorporate some of those scripts into the text of our letters and our packets and those types of things.
Yeah, but I figured all these people are calling or doing it, it's just like, I have a buyer, you know, that one was, to me, it was overused. So I didn't use that one. Not saying it doesn't work, could be a limiting belief on my part, but I just found that I don't like lying. I might have a buyer, but I might not. I haven't seen the house. So I just really wanted to get a conversation going with them and the handwritten notes, I tell you, it's been funny because I actually took a listing, that listing I got a while back was from a card I sent like 6 years ago.
Mhm.
They kept the
Kept
card
the card, yeah.
Wow.
and
I've
called
done
me
that
up,
all the time.
say, hey, I got your card in the mail, like, I just kept it. I knew when I wasn't ready to sell, but when I was ready, I was gonna use you, and it was like 6 years. I don't even remember the house, I didn't remember anything, I just played along with it, you know, went out there and listed the house, sold it.
Wow,
So,
personal touch.
so I think that those things, there's some shelf life with those things that, you know, with what Amanda's doing. How many people are holding on to those things? They're not ready to do anything now, but I'll bet you Amanda gets stuff years down the road on a consistent
I just
level.
sold 2 last year. The one is funny, she's like, I've had your card on my fridge from an expired campaign for 5 years. My husband would not let me throw it away.
Wow.
So.
You know, I'll be honest with you, that's really a
Yeah.
common thing. And a lot of people don't give it enough time with these types of things to really see the results that go along with doing those kinds of things. Because like you said, sometimes it's 6 years later that you see the results. You know, we hope that we don't have to wait 6 years to see the results, but sometimes you do. And if you don't stick with it long enough, you're never going to see those results. So I think that's, you know, any of these kind of marketing ideas that we have, you have to be able to do it for long enough to really see true results. And I just don't think a lot of people have the longevity in them and they just give up before it really is going to show you that impact. You know, postcards are, you know, all of those types of things. We can all, you know, if you've been in the business long enough, we'll all have an example of those times where they come out of nowhere and you're like, man, I really thought I wasted $500 3 years ago on that, only to find out that you got a $700,000 listing from it down the road, you know? So that's a, you know, a common theme is if you work at it long enough, those things will come back around.
I was thinking of a fishing analogy. You have multiple lines out and you wanna get the halibut, you gotta go deeper. Maybe sometimes, I don't know, but you do your deep sea fishing and then you do a little bit of, you know.
I think of it like you know, some people are crock pots, they have to, you know, bake for a really long time, and other people are microwave. You know, some are ready to go right now, they're fast, quick, easy. And other ones, I mean, they're just gonna sit for a very long time.
And I think, you wanna go first?
Oh, I was just gonna say that, you know, with all of these, you know, Amanda's is consistent over time. We have to be consistent over time because one of the latest stats that I saw on lead follow-up, you know, on lead conversion is 70% of all converted leads come between the 5th and 12th
Fifth and 12th.
attempted contact.
Oh, wow, yeah.
5th and 12th,
Those
so.
people give up about number 4.
Or most people go after the first, but yeah,
Yeah.
but if they do 2 or 3, they're doing better than most. But how many people are doing 5 through 12 attempted contacts?
Yeah.
And if 70% of your lead conversion is coming in those, you need to be consistent and have a routine and a system that keeps you in front of these people over time.
Awesome.
Sorry.
So mine is slightly different because it was so heavily focused. I do like I have a buyer. So when I have a buyer that's looking in a specific neighborhood, I will go pull the old past expires and different things to that effect. And reach out to them and, see if they're interested now, or canceled and say, I do have a buyer that is looking in this area, and this area could be like. It could be Wasilla, it could be Palmer, it could be, East Anchorage or South Anchorage or, Chudiak. So it is a micro like section usually of that area, but yeah, I mean, if I can, and to me, that's a value to my buyers, right? Oh, there's nothing on the market that you can see today, let's see what else we can find. And so I'll reach out.
And I think just to piggyback on that, I think that's for me why it's really important to keep conversation and good relations in the office. Because I've had several, we're in a tight market, like we're in right now with low listings. I've heard people talk about, oh, my seller just stopped this thing about selling and I never see it pop up. And I'll remember, oh, Sharon talked about, did you have that house? And I've been able to sell them that way.
Mhm.
And so just really when you have that buyer tapping into expired, the canceled. And what I was gonna tap into, especially if you're looking at the old expireds, which is, because there's less competition, I like that. Is you need to make sure you're doing your research. I mean, of course, you're gonna be in Flex, you're gonna see have they listed since,
Yeah.
right? So you're knocking those ones off, because many of them will. And after that, you're going to your tax records to make sure they haven't privately sold. Or put it into an estate or something like that. So don't just go pull expired, pull canceled and say, hey. Because guess what? About half of those have sold since, especially like I'll go 7 to 10 years back and start going or 5 to 7, like I do them in increments like that, and I start rotate who I'm going to and just slowly add to my database. But really you have to do that research, and if you're gonna do a long-term database and a long-term contact, you have to every quarter or whatever you set up, go and make sure that they haven't relisted. Like we
Off the
talked
list.
about last week, you're putting a disclaimer on that says, if you're currently listed with another real estate agent, this is not intended to be a solicitation for your business, making sure you're covering yourself. But for any new agent out there, don't think you can just pull an expired or pull the canceled and mark it to them, because you have to do your research. Perfect.
Right.
And,
Use
and for me,
Hey, that's really helpful.
yeah, for me, one of the things that I always like to do is I like to see who the previous agent was. I like to see like, okay, so if this is like Joe Schmo Realtor who's sold 3 houses in their entire history of their license, I'm gonna probably go after that one. If this is something that, a very good agent has listed and didn't sell, that may be an indication that you have an unrealistic seller. May, right? Like, so don't hold that as gospel, but if I see a really good agent that has taken that property and had it for 6 months and 0 price reductions, I could probably decide this is maybe a seller that maybe might not be worth a whole lot of effort for. So take that one step further and just do a little bit of research on how long was it on the market, who had it on the market, and maybe even having a conversation with that agent once you get down the road is important as well. So that's just my thoughts.
So a couple of things on that. And I don't mean to have a conversation, but I do this as a routine part of my business still and have for a long time. As for a couple handful that I've had of canceled, I get those calls and they tell me, I know if Amanda Charles is on there, there was a reason that it was canceled. And I'm telling them exactly what I'm dealing with, the good and the bad. So those calls, Doug, you, Brian, they're definitely made. And so make sure that you're doing that. The other thing is one, don't go potty where you eat. I mean, so if I'm looking at expireds and if I see that Sharon has one listed, I know she's a good agent, she's in my office, I see her all the time. I'm just not gonna go after it. Now, you can still do it if you want to, but I have a good relationship here. Right now, they're in another company, and even if we have a good relationship, I'd probably still reach out to because it is a company. But I'm more likely to reach out to that person like Brian did at that point, go, hey, Jeremy, why did that one cancel? So just be careful what you do there. You also want to go look at, sometimes from the pictures, it's obvious why it didn't sell. Just because it's expired doesn't mean you want that listing.
Yeah, I like the idea, I like cherry picking the listings that I'm actually gonna go after, I'll be honest, I don't want every listing. So. I'm gonna look at the photos, look at everything, look at the history, like Amanda was saying, I try to do a lot of the homework up front so that, I know what I'm getting myself into and what I'm going after.
And you're not wasting your money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on that same note, I mean, we've been known to call, like, I could call up Amanda and be like, oh, Amanda, I saw you had this canceled listing. Tell me, do you mind sharing with me what happened? Are you still in relationship with that person? When do you think that they would be coming back on the market? And, if anything, you gain insight about a listing that's maybe not on the market right now, but yeah, they're remodeling the entire kitchen and yes, we're gonna relist. Or she's like, it just didn't work out, sometimes between them, and it's like, cool. You might give me their contact information, I'd be happy to give you a referral, and I mean, it's an easy
Ooh, I never
manner.
added that.
And I've done
Yeah.
that before, and I've given referrals to people in our marketplace for just saying, hey, here's the contact, here's the information, I mean, here's what happened,
There's
and
a lot of it's personality.
sometimes so it's easy,
And sometimes it's just timing.
yeah, so.
And I'll add to that too, like even maybe walking into a property where condition or it's a unique situation where you need to get a little creative, well then call, who. And like Tyler Bobo, who can get creative, or someone else who can get creative with a particular property.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, not all sellers or people are our cup of tea, and not all properties are our cup of tea. So
I'm
some
happy to refer
properties-
all the really crappy properties to Tyler.
The crazy
hope
thing is
Tyler
he gets
watches
them
this.
done somehow.
Some people really thrive off of those types of things. That's great.
Yeah, but then
We have all
yeah,
sorts.
we all have our niche, right? Brian, do you have any questions?
No, I'm like you said, it's been a while since I've done canceled and expireds, to be honest with you, but that's something that I did quite a bit of in the past. I got, quite a few listings from canceled and expireds. The market for the last couple of years, there hasn't been a lot of canceled and expireds, right? But I think we're moving closer towards that direction. Once this inventory starts to get where we want it to be and need it to be, that's when we'll start to see a lot of those canceled and expireds starting to show up. And springtime is a great time to do canceled and expired, because sometimes they're canceled and expired because they spent 6 months in the middle of winter on the market. If it's in September, if they spent 6 months in the middle of the summer on the market and it didn't sell, that's a little bit different story. So this is a great time for canceled and expireds.
And don't forget to give them a reason to want to open the envelope. So as we talked about last week, I handwrite the addresses, right, the first 6 weeks I do. After that, they're just on a monthly fee up to the printer. But it's not in this one, an expired campaign that I should probably put back in there. My first one was a card that ran through the printer. It was a postcard on the front because it's blank. I took their main picture from the MLS, and if they didn't have one, I took a picture with my phone. And it was in the front of the postcard with little letters over it saying, it says, why didn't it sell? So they're opening a piece of mail with a picture of their home on it. And then I had a little intro inside about let's start a conversation, basically. And so those are very personal piece of items that people identify with versus just a mass market piece. And like I use stickers on the outside of mine, just, whatever the theme is, if it's a holiday or if it's summer or whatever. But that's my style, right? That's not gonna work for everybody.
Lance likes rainbow stickers and sunshine.
Yeah, if you know me, I'm all about flair.
I think there's being a little facetious.
Oh, my goodness. And then Nana, you started to mention Remind.
Yeah,
So can you talk a little bit about that?
so I mean, I don't know if it's underutilized. I love it. Some people, may or may not be using it, but I mean, when you're pulling open a property, there's the Remind button there, and I highly recommend clicking on that. You can get a lot of information, past title history information, tax records, all kinds of great details, sometimes even some phone numbers. So if you're not using that, it's free, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's part of the MLS.
Yeah, I don't pay more for it, but, yeah, so it's free, and if you're not using it, then doing the research, it makes the research super simple, easy. So,
I've never clicked on that button.
oh, you're gonna
Oh,
love
it
it.
was the best because down at the bottom too.
All the
I
total title information.
have everything, history, and then
Oh, no, I have 2 windows.
owners.
Do it the manual
And a
way.
lot
Do
of
it
times-
smarter.
The email, they'll have owner's email and, phone number sometimes down there
Yeah.
for you.
Relative.
First started doing them, I used the phone book.
Yeah,
And you can get people with landlines in there.
So
Yeah.
for the new licensees who will be watching this, when you get onto the MLS, there is a button called Remind, and Lance and Nani both touched on some things like title documents. phone numbers possibly and emails
Yeah,
even?
you
Yeah.
can scroll down, yeah.
Yeah.
You
At the
can
very
actually
bottom.
buy them. If they aren't there, they have a button where you can go and like pay extra to try and collect their accurate information, but some of them, what it does is it does like a search, and so for all of us that are realtors, our numbers or names are out there everywhere, but it will search for, you know, really super public, but if their information's not public, you can pay for the non-published information too,
Perfect,
so.
beautiful. Do you know if it scrubs it against the, do not call registry or is it?
I don't,
Well,
no, Remind does,
well,
our database does.
my database does,
Okay.
so,
But
yeah, our
Remind,
database.
probably ought to keep just good practice to.
But I think it does, if I recall, I think I have seen DNC next to the phone
I'll
number
have to go back
in
and read
Remind.
It pops up as.
It does pop up
Okay.
and it'll be in little red things to DNC.
Okay.
So that means they're on the do not call list. Now, with that said, there's nothing that says you can't just write them a handwritten thing, send it in the mail. You know, I never had any issues with anybody. And if they, yeah,
They call and say,
Call.
don't call me, okay.
then if they call and don't want me on there, I just stop it. Like, I'm not gonna argue with them.
No, why?
Yeah.
Somebody you don't wanna work with, they don't wanna work with you. It's not gonna be a good relationship.
It's to me, in my brain's like next.
Mhm.
Perfect. Good. Anything else you guys think that we should add to this conversation?
I just think, like, you know, Amanda was saying, like, being consistent, and Lance saying that, you know, it does take, like, don't be discouraged if you send 1 note, 2 notes, 5 notes, 6 notes, it's, could be 12, you know, over time, so I think waiting for those, and I think people can be discouraged when they hear, you know, like Brian, or, you know, some of us say like, it's been 5 years. And they're like, well, I need now business. Well, if you're doing 5 years business now, in 5 years, you'll have a way more now business. So you've got to like get that pipeline going, and the now business will show up, but the 5 year later business is going, that's the ones who they just pick you up and say, I'm ready for you to come list. I'm ready
You're
for you."
building your future
Yeah.
business at the same time you're building your now business.
Yeah, and so the now business is what you did 5 years ago, 2 months ago, showing up now. So that's.
And I can't stress enough, having some type of, you know, within your CRMs, within Command or whatever CRM you're using, automate as much of this as you can, right? So that you don't have to go into the office wondering what you're going to be doing for that day. You already have your to-do list there. You just do what it tells you to do, and you have these things automated. It becomes second nature. It's easy. If I were to rely on myself to do this every day without a CRM, I wouldn't get anywhere. You know, I'd always find an excuse not to do it. So,
And
So-
nobody will. Nobody will.
and-
That's not
nobody will.
possible.
yeah, but back in the day, it was my kids and me on a Sunday night packing these little envelopes, you know, it was a family thing,
Yeah.
right? That was my routine back
Bonding
then.
time.
Bonding time. My kids were
Do the same.
my kids were the ones putting stamps on things, you know, and
We'll go to a movie after this is done.
yeah,
Yeah.
I bribe them, yeah, with ice cream. Hey, if you do this, I'll take you out to get some ice cream, you know?
I was
That's-
gonna pay mine.
Yeah. Well, and then also to Lance's note on point, making in your CRM, like, have good notes. I mean, our notes literally go back to like 1996, before I even got into real estate, because we have my dad's old database.
Wow.
And so we can go back and go, oh yeah, we, you know, contacted them, or they've been in our database since then. And it will show the houses that we sold, the conversations we've had. I talked to them 5 years ago, wrote them a postcard. They called me and said, thank you for the postcard. I'll call you back when I'm ready to sell. 2 years ago, called me to sell. I went to their house. I mean, like, literally every little interaction goes in there as a note, and those contact notes help you, because when Amanda calls me up, I'm on my database going, oh, yep, Amanda, Charles, okay, yep, yeah, absolutely, I remember coming to your house, you have that really cool, you know, blah, 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 'cause I wrote something that was cool in my notes. And they're like, I can't believe you remember that, that was 5 years ago, and I was like, you know, something just stick with you.
With this CRM though, when I come, because I go into deep relationship when I'm with my clients, because I'm with them hard for a short amount of time, right? Hopefully a short amount of time. And I remember names of your kids at that time, but the names of the kids and their birthdays go in my CRM too. So when Sharon calls me, I go, hey, how's Nat doing? How's Sean doing? How's whatever? And cause I have my CRM open. And then when I send a kid's birthday card, it says your future realtor, Amanda Charles.
Wonderful. Hey, we're better than we are. We don't do birthdays, that's good, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What
But
else?
that's genuine to you, which I love, because that's like, they would think it was weird if I had to remember their kids' birthdays. That's, you know, so you can find your thing, who you are and what you do. People know I'm forgetful, they know that.
I have a vault right here. I
We have
remember
a
it.
vault.
I remember everything.
So it's interesting because we actually had a birthday conversation during one of our night classes, and Nicholas Cox here actually brought that up, that he asked for the kids'
great.
birthdays as well. And so we had a conversation about like, how do you go about gathering this information? Or, you know, how does that look? And actually it's nice. It's nice. His system is really great where it forms connection.
Oh,
And
yeah,
so they
for sure.
remember him for that. So, I mean, I guess
Yeah.
that's what all our clients remember us for is.
No, that
Can we
connection,
talk about-
I think to that point, your connection needs to be genuine to you, like, I mean,
Yeah.
and I don't mean weird that Lance would send a card, I mean, weird that that's just not his personality.
Correct.
So, I mean, it would be more his personality, like to, you know, talk about maybe fishing or, you know, some kind of, you know, hunting thing, or that would feel genuine. So that's kind of, I think that's what, again, sets us apart. Perfect.
It just depends on the client too, 'cause it's not all
Mm-hmm.
clients that's something, cause you know, it's the reading the person and
Yeah.
dependent on the direction to move. Cause
For
it
sure.
just feels like it's gonna be in a, like, oh my, that's probably not a good idea then. you
Right,
know,
yeah.
That I don't, but.
So question for you guys, how far back do you think we should be going? And I got my own answers, but I'm asking you guys, like how far back? Because we talked about timing, right? Sometimes it's just timing, right? So maybe 2 years ago they were trying to sell and then, you know, they found out grandma got sick or whatever it happens to be and they couldn't sell. But maybe now 2 years, 3 years later, they're ready. Like how far back do you guys tend to go before you kind of stop going back further into those expireds and canceleds? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it depends on what my goal is. So if I'm looking for a buyer in a neighborhood, I don't set a time back date. I mean.
You just look at all of them.
course, yeah, of course, I have to go back and see the history. Did it sell between now and then? But I mean, there's people still in our market that thought about selling in 2007 and they still feel fried from that market. And I mean, they'll just never mentally recover until they have to sell. And so, I mean, I think it's just, you know, if that's who I'm searching for, because I'm searching for my buyer, but, I don't know, they haven't sold, all of them.
I think it, you know, right now, because of the fact that we don't have a whole lot of expired and canceled listings on a daily basis, that also dictates that you're gonna go back further to accumulate, you know, enough data to work a system now. So, you know, 10 years, whatever it is, that's not uncommon. I'm happy, I will go back a long ways so that I have enough, you know, so that I can, you know, start a system and get it going. Now, you just don't know, like, I'm in this for the long game. I'm not in this for the short term,
Contact sport.
so, you know, and yeah, like Donnie's saying, this is a contact sport. I need to get belly to belly with as many people as I possibly can to get the now business and the future business, and so I'm gonna go back as long as I need to, you know, and I'm about being that, when I say it's a long game, I wanna add quality people into my database on a regular basis, right? And then set them up on a system, a touch system that's gonna stay in touch with them and make me, you know, front and center and be top of mind for them. And so, you know, I am a little picky as who goes in my database. I don't want just a bunch of junk. I'm not just putting a name in there with no contact information, but, you know, but I'm gonna go back as long as I need to, honestly.
Yeah. So that was kind of what I was looking for, is like it doesn't really matter how long it's been canceled and expired, right? So go for it. And so we talk a lot in it, like Ignite and things like that, about active and passive marketing. And I think this is both an active and a passive marketing opportunity when we're talking about these cancels and expireds, because just like you said, there will be some who are the microwaves are like, I'm ready today. And then there's going to be some slow cookers that are like, it didn't work out a couple years ago. But, I think in a couple years, we're leaving Alaska, and staying consistent with those people and keeping them in your database and staying on some sort of communication cadence with them so that when 2 years comes, it's still in their top of mind. So I think cancels and expireds are a good way to add to your current business and a good way to add to your future business. And when people say, well, they're not ready, we talk about it a lot. Like a good lead is somebody's that's in the market, whether that be now or later. But whether they become a business is whether or not you're going to stay in contact with them until they become a great lead, right? So I think it's an opportunity for both, right? So that's why I like things like cancels and expireds, because we are, when people say it's not a great lead, they're not ready to sell. I say, well, do you plan on selling houses in a couple years? Because if you plan on selling houses in a couple years, they're still a great lead. They're just not a great lead today.
Mhm.
And they only become a bad lead if you stop calling them and you don't keep in contact with them. So,
So how often do you keep in contact with the slow cookers? Like, I'm just curious with you guys, like if somebody says, I'm not ready to sell now, maybe in a year or two, how often are you touching them? So it
If
doesn't
it's
seem
a
annoying.
year, then we're sending them stuff monthly.
Okay.
If it's past 2 years, then we're sending them something, quarterly or something to that effect. Or we get permission, honestly. So like, how often would you like to get a market report or an update on your house? I can send them to you monthly or quarterly or or annually. And I usually don't throw the annual one out because I want to get it in front of a long-term lead, at least, once a month is kind of my thought. But, and then, again, if they're like in the year, I might even set them up on some kind of like listing alert, so they can, in their neighborhood, just as if they were a buyer, so they can kind of see what's happening in their neighborhood. So I'm just putting them in a more aggressive campaign.
yeah. So for us, I know some people do or don't use Command more or less, depending on how they feel about it or what systems they already have pre-established. But we do have the neighborhood nurture in Command that does the monthly update on things in their neighborhood. So that's a great tool if you have some of those long-term folks that you want to set up where you can send them information without having to do a lot of legwork for that. So that neighborhood nurture tool is a great tool for those that, use command at a pretty high level.
And most CRMs have some kind of long-term campaign like that, which is good. That's what.
Yeah, my expired though, like, so I don't do the calls, I don't do the emails typically with an expired, right? You have an address. And so mine will go into the 6-week campaign, obviously one different piece of mail for 6 weeks, and then they go into a monthly and they never come off. And so I got at least say, that's 18 right there, right? But then I've met some of my expireds and I met one canceled because I invited my client events every year. And so they'll show up at the movie theater and they confirm with my assistant and all of a sudden they're there, they're like, you've been sending me mail for a long time. And I meet them at the client event.
That's fun.
And so it's just to say consistency wins.
That's fun. Sounds
Yep.
awesome.
So yeah, so I try to stay within that, depending which campaign you're on, 33 to 52 touches a year.
Awesome, that's great. And then how about you guys? What do you do to keep in touch? Oh, wait, you do the monthly, but for.
So you just,
Within our database, I can just put them on I'll usually put them on like a month, depending on what it is, like the hot nurture watch. Hot is gonna be daily. Nurture is, once a month, and then, watch is like
over a year.
quarterly and they'll stay on there. But I'll put them on, depending on what it is, a monthly, market report, because I can set
Which
that
is the
right.
same thing that Brian was.
Yeah, it's the same
talking
thing.
about. Yeah,
It's
so
a-
you
it's
give them
a-
a neighborhood report.
And so they'll get a neighborhood report every month, just through their email, if I have their email, and so. We're able to trigger the different types of how we touch them
Which,
based
by
on.
the way, we know when they open up that report.
Right.
And I don't know if Command does this, but when they open up that report, you can be like, hey, I've been sending these reports. I'm just curious, do you have any questions? You're not weird. You don't go like, hey, I see that you just opened up the neighborhood report. You had to go like, hey, I'm just touching base. I've been sending you some neighborhood reports. Curious what your thoughts are. If you have any questions, do you have any plans anytime soon? Would you like a more accurate report on your house? These are very generalized reports. They are not what your house market value is. If you would like a true market value, I'd love to come out and introduce myself in person. So, I mean, that's, when we see them opening those reports, the trigger is we should be reaching out to them.
And the do not call list doesn't matter at that point, because they initiated. Right, so it's okay.
But, you know, again, like, maybe Nick opens up the report every month, and I got a note in there, like, Nick loves these reports, he opens up every month. I'm not gonna call you maybe every month, but I might call you like once a quarter and say, hey, how's it going? You know, you got any questions? You thinking about doing anything this year? Can I help you out? You need a contractor? Then it's more of a soft touch of just providing other services that you provide to them. And that's creating the relationship like you were talking about. And, you know, sometimes they'll just open them all the time. And then all of a sudden you see that they're opening the report like every other day.
Oh, yeah,
That person's probably, you know, really.
They're
super-
warming up.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
awesome. Does
One of the
anybody,
best scripts you can use on anybody that's a long-term person that, you know, Ben Kinney says it all the time, and I like it, is, hey, just out of curiosity, what are your real estate goals over the next 12 months? You know, then just
That's
shut
an
up
easy-
and let them talk.
Yeah.
It's super simple.
We're buying a cabin. Can you help with that? Yes.
So,
That's
absolutely, that's awesome, I like that. I really like that a lot. All right.
And, you know, another thing that I would like to say is that
yeah, I know.
sometimes people just need to be told again, if that makes any sense, right? Like, so sometimes, you know, they're working with their agent and their agent has told them, hey, your house is overpriced. It's not gonna sell. It's gonna, you know, we need to get the price down. And they go, no, we're not doing that. We're gonna keep it. And then it expires. And sometimes it just takes that next realtor to call them and say, hey, it looks like when you had your property on the market, it didn't sell. Usually that's because, you know, the price wasn't what the buyers were looking for at that time. And sometimes just hearing it from someone different, hearing it from someone again, can spur that, you know, ability for them to go, okay, well, I know I wanted 1 million, but maybe 1 million's not going to cut it. You're the second person who said that. So maybe let's try it a lower number and let's see if it happens. You know what I mean? So sometimes just being that second voice of reason can pay off as well.
Yeah, and honestly too, in this appreciating market, that's why I really like these old ones too, because the price didn't work then, but today it probably will.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like the
Market has been able to catch
appreciates
up to
where it
that.
matches your price that you wanted.
Yeah, that's.
Mhm.
When I do get them on the phone, I say, so what was the feedback from when you had your house marketed? Because that's gonna give me an insight, did it not have any showings, did it? Was it because the dog smell, the house was too, or the
Why did
realtor?
you think it
like-
didn't sell? Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I can't tell you how many too, just because they might seem like they're not reasonable to work with. The house I just sold off the Laughlin out in Chugiak recently, that was an expired listing with another agent. And honestly, it was the nicest lady, one of the nicest people I've ever worked with. Had her realtor just actually asked for a price reduction, she would have done it.
Yes, I agree.
But they don't. And so when I came in there and actually presented the market analysis and said, this is, I think you were overpriced. This is where the numbers are, and sure enough, we got it sold and it was under contract in less than a week. But she told me, but to my face, well, why didn't my realtor tell me to do this? I would have listed it there.
Yeah.
So that was a missed opportunity.
I received a referral from a past client, someone who had an expired listing in the ranch subdivision. Her realtor ghosted her. She never heard from him after he listed it. There was no sign. There was no, open houses, nothing, no showing.
Wow.
Nothing, and then she never heard from him again.
Yikes.
And so she called me
Then we
and
wonder
said,
why we have a bad rep with some people.
so it's interesting. So it's like when you're coming in as the second or third realtor, I think it's really important to just stay open and listen. Because these people have been burnt, potentially, or they have lack of trust. So I like to look at the psychology behind the people who are calling you if you're their second or third realtor.
There's gonna be a point of frustration.
There is, and it's just listening and allowing them to kind of unload a little bit and offer solutions and just be mindful that you're earning their trust again as well.
Mhm.
Same thing, like sometimes people will, their personalities may come out where it's very, they're like, well, I'm not doing this, and I'm not doing that, and then they end up being like the sweetest people. Because they were just burnt and they're putting up this front, and then all of a sudden, you're their best friend. So I have this one client where I was her third realtor, and I was interviewing, for the position, and I was maybe the sixth realtor that she was interviewing. I got it. I've sold 2 properties for them. And now she considers me family and is very, she just keeps in touch after all these years.
More the referral source for life.
Oh, it was huge. So it's one of those things where it's like, I just wanna put in that plug of like, these people have this feeling, thought, and we're just there to listen and be their guides.
Well, heard
Here's
that
what I will
couple
tell
days.
you. Nobody gives you more referrals than somebody who had a bad realtor and then is now convinced that you're a good realtor.
Yeah.
Those
Last
referrals
thing I
come
would
in
say,
fast.
you wanna be the first born son, the second spouse, or the third realtor. And, that gal.
Never understood the second.
I
one, to be
think
honest.
that, as a realtor, one of our main duties that we owe our clients is to tell people what they need to hear versus what they want to hear. And if we're not doing that, we're not doing our clients, the service that they deserve and honestly, what they've hired us to do. So a lot of times we have to just tell them what they don't want to hear. And as long as you've developed that relationship and you've performed and done what you said you're gonna do, they'll listen to you. And, going back to that house on Laughlin, like I said, I should go back and find that Google review. She said it was one of the most glowing Google reviews I've ever had. And because she felt like her previous realtor didn't do anything, and she even put it on there, all of the stuff that the other one didn't do, but that I did do.
With how many don't use this.
I'm like, wow, but, again, these are clients for life and they'll be super loyal to you and, you will have, like I said, you're building your future business while you're building your today business.
Yeah. It's a great opportunity for sure if you do it the right way and you do it for long enough.
Thank you. Well, I want to be respectful of time and just say thank you guys so much for like agreeing to just be here, share your thoughts, your experience, and being open to share with everyone. And yeah, super grateful. Any closing thoughts, Brian?
No, that was great. And we'll be sharing this on the YouTube channel so that everybody has the ability to use this moving forward. So thank you guys very much for your time. You guys are all very valuable agents within our company, and being willing to share makes a big difference, especially for new folks that don't have the ability to have the, what combined over 100 years of experience in the room. So thank you so much for being willing to come and take time out of your day to share with others. I think that's what makes a great company great, is the ability to share and to not hold things in without being willing to help. So thank you so much for coming, and maybe we'll be competing for an expired or canceled sometime in the future, and may the best man or woman win. You know what I mean?
I will.
Challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted. And winner gets a
Just do a round table with just like people hitting expired, like all in the same room.
Right.
So does she just do a challenge of the round?
There you go.
Just
Round table
expired,
challenge.
like,
You guys know I'm cool.
That would be great.
That'd be fun.
That's the
Challenge
thing.
accepted.
Yeah, like thick skin, like, I mean, if you and I are up, you know, and you get the listing or something, I'm like, cool, you know, moving on next, like,
I will-
it takes that personal.
I will say, Audrey Mason called me up years ago, cause she was pissed at me because there
Have
was
you
a
stopped
string.
recording?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, we gotta stop.
Stop recording.
it was just funny. It was so funny.
Brian's like,